December 7, 1941, Washington, D.C. early afternoon. The corridors outside the briefing room are unusually quiet. Inside, maps cover the walls. Red pins mark oceans, island chains, distances that suddenly feel far too large. Senior officers stand in small groups speaking in low voices. No one raises their tone, no one needs to. The United States has just entered a war it is not fully equipped to fight. In the hours after Pearl Harbor, the shock is obvious. Battleships lie burning, aircraft are destroyed on the ground. Communications are confused, but beneath the immediate damage is a deeper problem, one that cannot be repaired with emergency orders or overnight courage. America does not yet possess the weapon it needs most. Before the war, U.S. military planners had made assumptions, reasonable ones. They believed wars would be slow to ignite. Technology would evolve incrementally. There would be time to test, debate, and refine. That time is gone. In 1941, the American armed forces are large but uneven. Training programs are incomplete. Equipment standards vary wildly. New ideas exist but only on paper. Prototypes sit in workshops. Concepts remain unproven. And the enemy is already fighting. Across the Atlantic and Pacific, modern war is unfolding at terrifying speed. Aircraft range farther than expected. Ships strike from distances once thought impossible. Coordination between air, sea, and intelligence has become decisive. America watches these developments with growing unease. The weapon it lacks is not merely a machine. It is a system. A combination of technology, doctrine, production, and trained crews working together seamlessly under pressure. Without it, America risks fighting the next phase of the war blind. Inside the Navy Department and War Department, debates intensify. Some argue caution, new systems require testing, rushing invites catastrophe, lives are at stake. Others argue the opposite. Delays, they say, are already killing people. In 1941, the United States has ideas, bold ones. Engineers have proposed solutions that promise to change how wars are fought, but these ideas remain unfinished. They have not been tested at scale. They have not been integrated into doctrine. Most dangerously, they have not been produced in numbers that matter. The problem is not intelligence. American planners know what is coming. The problem is time. Factories can be expanded, workers can be trained, designs can be improved. But none of that happens instantly. And war has already begun. In the weeks following Pearl Harbor, reports flood in from every theater. Enemy movements are faster than expected, coordination is tighter, mistakes are punished immediately. Every report carries the same unspoken message. America must adapt or fall behind permanently. This realization creates a moment of rare clarity. The war cannot be fought using peacetime logic. Incremental progress will not be enough. The missing weapon must be built now, not eventually, not perfectly, but fast enough to matter. That decision marks the true beginning of the story. Not the story of a single invention, but of an industrial gamble. Because what America is about to attempt has never been done before. Not at this speed. Not at this scale. Not under this pressure. Engineers will be asked to compress years into months. Factories will be redesigned while already producing. Training doctrines will be rewritten midstream. Mistakes will be made and accepted. The risk is enormous. But so is the cost of hesitation. In 1941, America does not yet have the weapon it needs. But it has something just as dangerous to its enemies. The willingness to rebuild an entire system while already at war. And once that process begins, the pace will shock everyone watching, including America's enemies. January 1942, an aircraft factory outside Detroit, night shift. The lights never turn off. Men and women move between half-finished machines, clipboards tucked under their arms, sleeves rolled up despite the cold. Welders shower sparks across concrete floors. Engineers argue beside drawings that are already out of date because the design has just changed again. This is not normal production. This is emergency. Once the decision is made, there is no gradual phase. America does not ease into the problem. It attacks it. The weapon the United States lacked in 1941 was not something it could simply buy or copy. It required an entire ecosystem: precision manufacturing, new materials, revised tactics, and crews trained to use it under combat stress. Building any one of those pieces would have been difficult. Building all of them at once, while already fighting a global war, borders on reckless. And yet that is exactly what happens. Design offices become war rooms. Engineers stop asking whether something is ideal and start asking whether it can be built now. Features are stripped away if they slow production. Components are standardized wherever possible. Parts are redesigned not for elegance but for speed of assembly. Perfection is postponed. Speed is not. The most radical shift is psychological. Before the war, a design flaw was a failure. Now it is data. If something breaks, it is recorded, fixed, and pushed back into production immediately. Lessons that once took years to circulate now travel in weeks, sometimes days. Factories adapt on the fly. Production lines are rearranged mid-shift. Workers are retrained while machines are running. Entire plants pivot to new roles without stopping output. There is no clean handover from planning to execution. Everything overlaps. The clock is always visible. Every delay has a cost measured in ships sunk, aircraft lost, positions abandoned. This knowledge creates urgency, but also permission. Permission to take risks. Military leadership changes its tone. Instead of asking for guarantees, they ask for progress. Instead of demanding flawless performance, they demand numbers. How many units this month? How many next month? How soon can crews be trained? The answers are not always comforting, but they are honest. Training becomes just as aggressive. New crews are pushed through accelerated programs. Simulators replace live testing where possible. Veterans rotate back to training commands to pass on hard-earned experience. Doctrine is rewritten in real time. What works stays. What fails is discarded. The weapon begins to take shape, not as a single breakthrough but as a rapidly evolving system. Early versions are rough, in some cases dangerous. But they exist. And existence matters. By mid-1942, the first operational deployments begin. They are not yet decisive. But they are disruptive. Enemies who expected predictable behavior now face something unfamiliar. Capabilities appear suddenly where none existed before. Tactics shift without warning. The battlefield becomes unstable. This is when outside observers begin to notice something unsettling. America is not merely catching up. It is accelerating. Every unit produced improves the next one. Every mission flown rewrites the manual. Every loss sharpens the system instead of discouraging it. The speed of this cycle is unprecedented. In other nations, innovation waits for peace. Here it is fueled by war. The gamble is still dangerous. Mistakes still cost lives. But the direction is now clear. America has put itself on a trajectory that is extremely difficult to stop. The weapon that did not exist in 1941 is no longer theoretical. It is real. It is multiplying. And its impact is about to be felt far beyond the factory floor. Because once it reaches critical mass, the war will no longer look the same to anyone fighting it. Late 1942, somewhere in the Pacific, morning. The sea is calm, almost deceptively so. On the deck of an American warship, crewmen move with a confidence that didn't exist a year earlier. Equipment is checked quickly. Procedures are followed without hesitation. There is no ceremony, no speeches, just efficiency. This is the first visible sign that the gamble is working. When the new weapon system reaches the front, it does not arrive perfectly formed. It arrives fast. Faster than enemy intelligence predicted. Faster than enemy doctrine can comfortably respond to. Faster than existing defenses were designed to counter. That speed changes everything. Early encounters are uneven. Some crews struggle, some systems fail under combat stress. losses occur not because the concept is wrong but because it is new. Instead of retreating to redesign, America does something unexpected. It keeps deploying. Feedback loops tighten. After-action reports are transmitted immediately. Engineers read combat data while production continues. Modifications are introduced mid-run. Crews receive updated procedures before their next mission. There is no pause between learning and action. Enemy commanders begin to notice inconsistencies. American capabilities no longer behave predictably. Tactics vary from engagement to engagement. Weaknesses identified one month disappear the next. What was learned yesterday is already obsolete. This is not technological brilliance in the traditional sense. It is organizational velocity. In previous wars, adaptation followed defeat. Now adaptation accompanies it. Even failed operations contribute to progress. Even losses generate momentum. The system grows stronger under pressure. By early 1943, the change is unmistakable. Operations that once required careful planning and rare opportunity are now routine. Assets are available in depth. Crews rotate without degrading capability. Damage is repaired faster than expected. The weapon is no longer scarce. It is present. For America's enemies, this creates a new kind of uncertainty. They are no longer reacting to a fixed threat. They are reacting to a moving target. Countermeasures are proposed, adjustments are attempted, but each response lags behind the pace of change. By the time a weakness is identified, it has already been addressed. The psychological effect is profound. Enemy commanders lose confidence not because they are outmatched in skill, but because they cannot predict what they will face next. That uncertainty forces caution. Caution creates hesitation. Hesitation creates opportunity. This is how speed becomes a strategic weapon. Not raw velocity, but the speed of improvement. As 1943 progresses, the gap widens. What began as an emergency response becomes a sustained advantage. Production continues to climb, training pipelines mature, doctrine stabilizes not because it stops changing but because it changes within a controlled framework. Chaos gives way to rhythm. The system now absorbs shocks instead of collapsing under them. Losses no longer threaten momentum. They barely interrupt it. This is the moment the balance of the war quietly tilts. Not because of a single battle. Not because of a single breakthrough. But because one side can now outpace the other indefinitely. The weapon America didn't have in 1941 is no longer catching up. It is setting the tempo. And once tempo belongs to one side, the other can only react. The consequences of that shift will soon become impossible to ignore. Because when speed aligns with scale and both are sustained, the outcome of the war begins to narrow. Not suddenly, but permanently. Mid-1943, a forward base in the Pacific, afternoon heat. Aircraft land, refuel, and take off again in a steady rhythm. There is no pause to celebrate, no sense of novelty. The crews work as if this tempo has always existed because for them now it has. What once felt extraordinary has become routine. This is the moment when innovation stops being surprising and starts being oppressive. By the middle of the war, America's advantage is no longer just speed. It is continuity. Operations do not surge and fade, they persist, day after day, week after week. The weapons system that was rushed into existence under emergency conditions is now fully integrated into how the war is fought. And it does not rest. For America's enemies, this creates a new kind of pressure. There is no single attack to prepare for, no brief window of danger followed by recovery. Instead, pressure is constant, arriving in waves that never fully recede. Every response costs resources. Every defense drains strength. Every pause is exploited. Production feeds this cycle relentlessly. Factories do not slow down after success, they accelerate. Designs are refined, not replaced. Improvements are layered onto existing systems rather than waiting for entirely new ones. This creates a dangerous asymmetry. One side must choose where to commit limited resources. The other simply adds more. By late 1943, replacement has become automatic. Damaged equipment is pulled back, repaired, and returned to service with minimal disruption. Crews rotate without reducing operational tempo. Training pipelines deliver new personnel faster than losses accumulate. The system absorbs punishment and keeps moving. Enemy planners begin to realize the trap. Even successful actions fail to produce lasting results. A base destroyed is rebuilt. A unit worn down is replaced. A temporary advantage evaporates within weeks. Nothing sticks. This is when the war's character changes. The battlefield is no longer a series of decisive moments. It is a test of endurance under unrelenting pressure. Attempts to regain initiative become riskier. With fewer resources available, each gamble carries higher stakes. When it fails, there is no margin to recover. The system lacks elasticity. America's does not. The weapon that did not exist in 1941 has now matured into something more dangerous than any single machine. It is a force that compounds. Each success makes the next one easier. Each failure produces data instead of collapse. Each month widens the gap. This is why late war engagements feel different. They are not fought to decide the war. They are fought to slow its conclusion. By the end of 1943, the outcome is no longer balanced on a knife's edge. It is trending in one direction, slowly, relentlessly, and with growing certainty. The pressure does not need to overwhelm all at once. It only needs to continue. And it does. Into 1944. Into 1945. What began as a desperate attempt to build something faster than anyone thought possible has become an unstoppable process. The weapon is everywhere now. In the air, at sea, in planning rooms and production lines. At this stage, victory is no longer about surprise. It is about inevitability. And inevitability is the most crushing pressure of all. Because once it sets in, resistance becomes a matter of time, not outcome. Early 1944, Pacific Ocean dawn. The horizon is crowded. Ships sit at anchor in numbers that defy quick counting. Aircraft warm their engines in staggered rows. Supply craft move steadily between hulls, unloading, refueling, repairing without urgency because urgency is no longer required. This is not a buildup. This is a state of being. By this stage of the war, the weapon America didn't have in 1941 is no longer remarkable. It is normal. And that is what makes it decisive. What began as an emergency response has crossed a threshold. The system now sustains itself. Production, training, deployment, and adaptation operate in a continuous loop that no longer depends on exceptional effort or improvisation. The war machine no longer surges. It flows. For America's enemies, this is the moment options disappear. There is no scenario in which waiting helps, no pause that allows recovery, no gamble that promises a decisive reversal. Every possible response has already been accounted for or will be absorbed. The war has passed the point where brilliance can compensate for imbalance. This is the truth that emerges slowly, almost quietly. Not in a single defeat. Not in one dramatic collapse. But in the realization that nothing changes the trend. Even when America suffers losses, they do not alter momentum. Ships lost are replaced before their absence is felt, crews rotate without weakening operations, equipment damaged in combat returns improved, not diminished. Loss no longer equals setback. By contrast, every loss on the other side carries weight. Each failure removes experience that cannot be replaced. Each damaged asset represents months or years of recovery that never arrives. Each decision narrows the future. Time no longer works equally for both sides. This is why the war's final phase feels inevitable long before it ends. The outcome is no longer being decided. It is being completed. The weapon America didn't have in 1941 was never just steel, circuitry, or engines. It was the ability to compress time, to turn urgency into structure, to turn improvisation into doctrine, to turn production into pressure. Once that ability took hold, the war stopped being a contest of moments. It became a process. And processes, when they scale, adapt, and endure, are almost impossible to stop. That is why the turning point of the war does not belong to a single battle or a single year. It belongs to the moment America decided it could not wait to be ready, and chose instead to become ready while the world was watching.